if there's a beginner who ends up watching this who hasn't taken the jump, cautiously take the jump. You will learn most of it when you're actually hands on. I was the kid who watched hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of content on real estate and learned, I'd say 90% of what I know today in the last 7 months doing the flips. I would say just get out there, find a partner like Joel who is willing to talk you through it, come walk a property, tell you there's something concerning, and just get hands on.
Welcome to another episode of Fund Flip Repeat. I am your host, your private money lender, Joel Cadlick, and with me today, a special guest, Jason McClary. Jason, so happy to have you on, man. Excited to get into this episode and learn about an exciting project that you just got done, learn what you learned from it, and help our listeners also understand what that looks like and what they can learn about that process from your experience, ups and downs and all arounds, so we can really kind of get into all of that together. So Jason, thanks for coming on, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So man, let's just jump right into it. So I was fortunate enough to link up with you now, probably, what was it, like late last year. And what's that?
Like October-ish.
Yeah, late last year, like October, quarter four, and you had this property that you were looking at, and this was like your first flip. Is that right?
Yes, first one by myself. I've had mentors and stuff, but yeah, first one diving in head first by myself.
Okay, awesome. So, what initially drew you to real estate investing? I like to ask that question because I mean, there's so many different avenues you could go, but obviously you had your sights set on investing. This is newer for you, so like, what does that fresh journey look like for you right now?
What drew me to it, to keep it short, was I watched a lot of YouTube as a kid, and I stumbled across a couple of channels that they were some of the early ones posting their journey through flipping and holding rentals and stuff like that. And I was like 12 years old. I knew I wanted a job that was a little different someday because I never liked, even as a kid, I never liked the concept of, well, I'm going to wake up and go to an office and then come home. And I want something that's a little new and different. So I come
Mhm.
across some of these channels as a 12-year-old, and I was like, this is really cool. I don't understand it. I'm a kid. I'm so far away from it, but it's really, really cool. And so since then, I've just become more and more obsessed with real estate, mainly residential. Um, I don't know. I just grew such a passion for houses and making ugly houses pretty and just the whole business has really, it's just as surprising to me that I fell in love with it the way I did. And so I had to find a way to get into it.
That's awesome. So 12 years old. So this has been a long time coming. When you say, so as a 12-year-old, what were those avenues that you were getting exposed to this? Is this like YouTube or books or podcasts or everything? Or was there something specific?
Mainly YouTube at first, 'cause, that would have been 2014-ish. So still there, it wasn't the podcast scene the way it is now. I obviously, as a 12-year-old, I'm not going to Barnes and Noble and buying real estate guru books and stuff like that yet. So it was really just YouTubers basically like vlogging their experience as they flipped a house or got one ready for rent or went over their portfolio and the numbers and how they make it work. I don't know. That all just really grabbed my attention more than anything else had. And I was hooked.
That's awesome, man. You also mentioned mentors, right? So you've had some people maybe speak into your life and download some things to you as well during this path. Is there anyone specific, or you mentioned gurus? Did you hire anybody like that on, or what does that look like for you?
I never, thankfully, had a lot of good people talk to me. Never had to pay anybody for advice or anything like that. But Aaron
Okay.
McCall, really, you know him, really
Yeah, great local guy. Yeah.
wing. We started out I wholesaled him my very first sale as a wholesaler, as like a 18-year-old. Went to him, and he was I think getting started on his journey. And so then he kind of talked to me about maybe we could get into wholesaling. So we tried that for a little while. Didn't become a huge business, but we stayed in contact, and he went on to flipping. I think he worked with Spark for a little bit. And now he's back out on his own and offering advice to me again. And I had met somebody who worked with, I think his name is Logan Haskett.
Okay.
Down. I met
Yeah.
somebody that had worked with him somewhere in the wholesaling stuff. She helped a lot of advice. Her name was Marcy. So those two people really kind of as I got to the age where I was starting to actually dip my toes into it, not just a little kid watching YouTube videos, they really, gave me advice and took some time to talk to me and really build some confidence. And so those were two people that really, really kind of gave me that push.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. I love to hear that because honestly, it's so simple, right? When you break it down that way, is man, business is easy. People are complicated. We so easily get in our own way. And if we just reach out, ask questions, and we will find people that are go givers in our community and want to download what they've experienced. And if we're willing to actually take action and make those steps, it's super rewarding to see those folks succeed as well. And obviously, you are somebody who sought out that advice of others. And I think it's also super important to highlight Jason, I think my experience with you is like humility of like, hey, I don't know everything. So I am willing to take the advice and not, pretend like I know everything and then just like push something through. And that's a super important part of it as well. And I'm the same way with my mentors. It's like, hey, just, I don't know anything. Just tell me what to do. And I'm going to go follow the recipe of success because someone has already laid those steps and experienced the pain and have the ups and downs. So it's super super simple. So that's wonderful to hear. You got some education online. You piqued your interest. You reached out to some people that were doing it, and now you're doing it yourself. Love, love, love to hear that, man. So cool. All right. Well, cool. So exciting. First flip under your belt, man. Ring the bell. Probably can't hear it, but we'll put the audio thing on the podcast. But I'll ring in the bell. So, man, describe that first property. Describe the first flip. What was the condition of it? How did you find it? Yeah.
It was my grandparents' house, which
Okay.
convenient. I actually wasn't expecting that, but life happens and people pass away, and so that popped up sooner than what I thought I was going to be buying my first deal.
Yeah.
So they had owned it since it was new in 1956. So they lived there the whole time and they weren't big remodelers.
Okay.
It wasn't trashed. It wasn't going to be like like a full gut it down to the studs, but it needed a little bit of everything. It needed some foundation. So it was a pretty hefty project for the first one, but I was willing to take it on because I knew the home. I grew up in the home, it's the same city that I grew up in, so we were always over there with grandparents and stuff. So I was familiar with it, which made it a little less daunting. But I mean, it needed everything.
Yeah. That's so cool though, because that's they say don't remove emotion from real estate and projects, but this might have been a little more challenging to do that in some sense, just because this is a family home, a childhood home. You have memories there, but like, how cool is that to be able to revitalize a home that you had lived in and had those memories, and it's a home that was in the family. So I think that's a pretty unique first flip that you were able to do. So yeah, that's really interesting. So you said it needed quite a bit of work. I mean, first flip doing foundation, that's not super common either. So you went for it, you did it. What were some of the I like to go to the fun stuff, right? Or what were some of the things that came up that were surprises or unexpected things that you weren't planning for necessarily, or were there any?
Oh, there was a lot. It was a huge learning experience. It's a lot of work. It's a lot more than I thought it would be. And I figured, all these years of YouTube and watching all this stuff, I kind of figured I had a good handle, what a
Mm-hmm.
project like that would take. And then you get into it and your first one, I mean, you walk into that home after closing and it's just, there's so much to do. So planning what to do was definitely something I had to learn along the way. It was fun though. It was fun to go through the process and realize that I was learning things through just the first house rather than having to get 10 homes deep to maybe learn a lesson. But
Absolutely.
it was fun to go through and kind of just learn how to get a project from start to finish like that. Because that's something that you can't really learn through YouTube or talking to somebody. I mean, I think it's best learned doing it, getting out there and really learning hands on.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. You can watch all the YouTubes, you can read all the books, but you have to do it. You would just absolutely have to do it. What is something like specific though? Like something specific, like it's like, man, this was not expected, or um, Yeah, that maybe took you off guard, or when you said it was more work than you expected. Like, what specifically do you mean by
Demo is a lot harder than I expected it to be. They make it look fun on HGTV and whatnot.
that? Yeah.
Painting is quite the undertaking. I
Did you go in there and swing the hammer and
Yeah,
do the demo yourself?
yeah, and it was fun, but it's a lot of work. It's
Yeah.
and it always takes so much longer because, like I said, on TV, they make it look like you just knock some stuff down and you're done, but it's a lot, and I think painting was the thing that really probably caused me the most problems. I initially was like, oh, this can't be that hard. You
Yeah.
gotta, you just gotta roll the walls and do stuff like that. And after about a month and a half of me trying to learn how to paint well, I finally called in a buddy of mine, and well, more a buddy of a guy that I had working with me, and said, "Man, I need somebody who paints." So that was probably the main challenge that took the longest was thinking I could do something like painting a lot better than I could.
Yeah, but you know what's really cool about that too is you got into it, you had a plan, right? And you experienced that plan. You experienced some of the pain, which was good. I say good. You're probably like, no, it wasn't good, but it is good. And then the great part of it is you pivoted, right? You pivoted and then you're like, okay, let's do it this way. So already on your first project, midway through, you're already making adjustments, and that is just super wise, right? And that just says a lot about you and how you're approaching the project as itself, because you're approaching it like a problem solver, and that's what the best entrepreneurs do. Because you could just stay stubborn and say, hey, I'm just going to continue to paint this house because this is what I originally set out to do, and I don't want to be proven wrong here. But again, coming back to it, like you humbled yourself to say, okay, like this isn't working, let me make a pivot here, and this is going to be a better way of doing it, right? And then the next project, you're probably going to find more things, and there's going to be a better way to do that, and the next project, a better way of doing that, right? The same thing with projects I'm on, I'm still doing that, right? So that's really, really cool to hear. And I would say you're right, exactly on the right track for being willing and able to do that. Because I think some folks get stuck a little bit in a wheel of, maybe they're on their fifth project and they're still not making some of those adjustments they need to do. So really, really cool on your first project. You're already making those tweaks within, like you said, month and a half. So
Yeah, my dad growing up was the one who really instilled that in me. Was he became a doctor, and everyone knows that's hard to do. And he told me that he really started to sail smoothly through the schooling when he learned that you've just got to be, let the ego down, ask questions, admit, you're not less of a man to say, I don't I don't know this. I need to tap into somebody who does, ask questions, reach out to, when I realized a project was too big of an undertaking, reaching out and saying, hey, I'm going to need to hire a professional. And so he really instilled that in me to be comfortable saying, I don't know everything. So that really obviously has helped out quite a bit.
yeah, that's awesome, man. So how much was do you mind sharing some of the numbers, like what the rehab budget was and what you ended up selling the house for?
Yeah. So we bought it for 70,000, which was pretty smack in the middle for the neighborhood.
Okay.
We had originally gone for 35,000, I think, and we were shooting, of course, as a beginner, you're trying to get it lower, but it ended up, I think, being closer to 45 after it was all said and done. So
Okay.
not the worst. Um, on paper, it sold for 193. There was some concessions and some lender stuff that they did to change that number a little bit. Uh,
Okay.
so like my actual sale price, if there were no concessions, was 185. So a pretty good deal. Uh,
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic, man.
it went higher than I thought originally coming into it, and I think you and I had discussed more like 165, 175. But as the project went on, some other properties in the neighborhood came up, and they were selling for strong numbers. So I figured, we'll throw it up a little higher and see what happens. In 24 hours, we had a contract. So yeah,
Yeah.
all there.
Say that part again. So you had a contract in 24 hours after listing it?
Yes, we listed it. I can't remember the date, but we listed it that evening. Everything was up and on Zillow and all of that. And I got a text that night asking at like 10 o'clock at night, asking if their clients could come see it that next morning because they had a bunch of other showings scheduled that day, but they really liked that one that had just come up. that afternoon, I don't even think it was 24 hours. That next afternoon, she sent over a contract, and it was perfect.
Bam.
Yeah,
That's awesome, man.
it was good.
Buy it for 70, 45 rehab, so you're 115 in, and you sell it for 190. Well, we said 185 after
Yeah,
concessions, essentially, right? That's fantastic, dude. That's amazing. That's really, really cool.
thanks, man. It went perfectly.
How did you determine? So here's something that can sometimes be a mistake is listing it too high, right? And then having to do price reductions. Obviously, you nailed it. You went aggressive, but you sold it in 24 hours. So like kudos to you, man. That's fantastic. But like, how did you determine to do that, right? Like,
I was
what
comfortable.
was your thought process there?
I was comfortable being a little more aggressive on price because that neighborhood was a pretty hot neighborhood. The couple of homes that I mentioned that kind of raised my price, they also went in 2 to 3 days under contract, and they were
Mm,
really high numbers, numbers I would never have expected. And so there were obviously people buying in that neighborhood, appreciating some value, and the well done flips over there. Some of them, if you use the price per square foot method of basically just giving yourself a rough number, put mine kind of, there were some a tiny bit lower and some quite a bit higher. So I still think I went relatively conservative because I probably could have pushed it a little higher, but like you said, you risk price reductions and it sitting on the market. That doesn't do anybody any good. It was a number that I was more than happy with, and I've learned, not to get greedy. That's the quickest way to not make money.
right.
Is to just, if that's the number it's going to go for, to be happy with it. It's more than I originally anticipated. So yeah, just, the neighborhood kind of priced it there, and I still went somewhat conservative. I probably could have pushed it a little more. But yeah, it went well. But just being, I was just brave enough to not list it at the original price. I could have always dropped it down to 175 or whatnot if it wasn't selling.
I love that. I love that. Because when you're in these flips too, they're going to, you're buying them, right? But it's going to take time, right? So 6 months later, the market, might have changed, especially right now with the market doing the thing it's doing is, well, what is the data telling us now? And that's exactly what you did. So you went out and you played detective, which is the right thing to do. So what are the days on market? What are things selling for now? What's my most recent comps? And that's super smart. You're looking at, hey, days on market. This one sold for 3, 4 days. I can compete with this, and I've flipped it to the caliber of whatever this comp is, I'm assuming, right? And yeah, that's awesome, man. I love that. So you always have to make those adjustments, and I think you hit the nail on the head. So I was surprised, man. I was surprised when you're like, man, it's got it sold. I'm like, wait, I didn't even know you got it listed
Yeah,
yet.
no,
So
it was wild.
yeah. So did you work with any like partners or like contractors? How did you manage the project or the relationships with this? Like there's a whole other part of the business, right? Is the actual doing of the rehab. So what did that look like? Who are the crews? You mentioned you made some pivots with the paint and stuff. So did you bring on crews midway through? Did you have crews in the beginning, or like what did that look like? You said you did some demo.
So I started off, um, with my idea being, like I mentioned, I was going to do a bunch of it. I figured, first one, I need to understand the work that goes into this. Silly me. But that was my thought process, having not done it. So my mom had met a pretty good contractor, kind of all around guy named Ben. And so I was like, do you want to tackle this with me? You have expertise with the things that I won't touch. And
Okay.
he was on board. And so it was me and him. I was trying to do a bunch of stuff. I had him working on stuff that I didn't have the expertise to do. And like we've talked about, as the deal went on, his kind of responsibilities grew as mine shrunk because I started learning. There are a lot of things that I just don't have experience with. It's not as easy as it looks on TV. Getting into it and
Right.
DIYing a home. I mean, it just doesn't come together that way. And so he thankfully had the experience, from working on a ton of other projects and homes, and was able to knock that out. And he's a trustworthy guy, and so he really was the savior of that. It would have been difficult if I didn't have him because I don't have yet, the list of contractors that I can go to. I don't have like a big paint crew or a big flooring crew or whatever. So he really helped out a bunch. And then with the paint, he had a friend Carl who, owns his own kind of paint company, and so he came in and took over that paint job, with Ben. So that really helped out. But yeah, it wasn't just me. I had been there and hoping to expand to more people as I gain more experience to speed these up and obviously take care of the things that I'm not experienced with.
That's awesome. So, how long did it take you from uh, close to finished rehab?
Almost exactly 6 months, I think.
Okay.
And then I guess if you include TRRs, it was the full 7 for the sale. But
So, close to close, 7 months. Dude, that's fantastic. Bam. So 7 months, first flip, close to close, pivoting in between, learning things. Man, I really just want to highlight like fantastic job. I mean, really, truly. That's just a lot going on there. And I think you just knocked it out of the park. So really, truly say that and mean that. So well, that being said, dude, like what are your goals for the future investing? Are you going to continue flipping? Do you have other things in mind? Like what's next for you? What are you excited about?
well, for right now, given how much I learned, I'm gonna take probably the next few deals one deal at a time. Keep
Mm-hmm.
learning, build up, more relationships with contractors and companies that can do the work, and really iron out my processes because I do want this to be a long term career and not more of a hobby. And so I'm really focused right now on building those systems that will make it easier as I scale. So one deal at a time, and then I think the goals are the I think the traditional pipeline you see a lot of people take is flipping to build some capital, and then of course buy and hold as I have the capital, obviously as well, kind of putting that down the road because rates right now obviously aren't phenomenal for buy and hold unless you have the capital to put in.
Mm-hmm.
So, but right now, one deal at a time. Went and looked at one last week. Maybe not a deal, looking for more. So, but like I said, just one at a time for right now, building my systems. I don't want to get too ahead of myself because that's what I did when I walked into the house for the first time. Had this idea of how I wanted it to go, and boy, did it slow down. So I'm gonna take it easy and really build a business here rather than building a hobby or building a full time job, which I know is a lot of investors talk about not doing.
Yeah. Super smart, man. Super wise. Yeah, it's about playing the infinite game, right? We're playing the finite within the infinite, and you're a young dude, so you've got a long, long journey ahead. So that's fantastic. So love to hear that. Definitely excited to keep an eye on your journey. Who knows, man? I might have you back on the podcast, and you've got a whole nother story going on, and that'll be a lot of fun. So, any last minute things you would like to say before we hop off here?
Well, I'm not much of a motivational speaker, but if there's a beginner who ends up watching this who hasn't taken the jump, cautiously take the jump. You will learn most of it when you're actually hands on. So, I was the kid who watched hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of content on real estate and learned, I'd say 90% of what I know today in the last 7 months doing the flip. So I would say just get out there, find a partner like Joel who is willing to talk you through it. Come walk a property, tell you if there's something concerning, and just get hands on, because if you do the basics, you buy the deal right, you really are
Mhm.
careful with your numbers. Again, like someone like you will go over the numbers. You even told me, hey, I think you're a little low. You're going to need to come up, and you were absolutely right. Uh,
Yep.
so just getting buying a house and really getting your hands dirty and learning is way better than sitting around watching YouTube.
I love it, man. So, so true. And I do have to highlight, this might be a little self serving, but I love the hat you're wearing, fixed lending hat. I got to call it out. If you're listening to the podcast, you can't hear it, but if you're watching it on YouTube, you can definitely see it. Fixed lending hat, represent. Thank you so much, Jason. Love to have you on, man. Love to hear the story. How can folks reach out to you if they want to just connect with you, man, and maybe just pick your brain about something? I know everyone who's on the show is a go giver. I know you would be happy to talk to them as well. So if they did want to reach out, how would they be able to reach you?
Absolutely. My Facebook, I guess, would be easy. I'm in the Tulsa investor group, so if that helps iron out who I am, it's just Jason McClary, McClary. I have an email. You can email me at jasonbuys918@gmail.com. So, yeah, if anybody has any questions, I'm more than willing to talk about it. I love to talk about real estate. It's what I've done for a long time now. And so, yeah,
Also, brother, we will leave your contact information in the show notes as well, and we'll talk to you later.